the fact that Duke was able to get a quarterback coming off a great season at Tulane, who's got 3 years of eligibility remaining, arguably the most important transfer for this offseason for what he could do for that program over a couple seasons. And I expect him to have success right away because he steps in behind a veteran offensive line, arguably the best offensive line in the ACC last season.
Let's dive in here to talk about some ACC futures with our college football betting expert, Ryan McCrystal. Outstanding conference. Really going to be fun talking to Ryan about some of his favorite over or under bets to make. But before we do that, I want to mention you can get all of our futures, NFL and college futures, over at sharpfootballanalysis.com. 60% off. That's right, 60% off. Just use the code SAVE60. It'll get you all the futures for 60% off. Last year, NFL futures hit 64%. College futures hit 60%. $100 better won over $2,000 following these betting recommendations. So make sure that you use code SAVE60 and head over to sharpfootballanalysis.com to get some of the other futures that we're offering. But let's talk about a couple of them right now with Ryan McCrystal and go ahead and bring him in. Look, Ryan, we know Clemson, ACC, they're the team that's supposed to win this division win this conference rather, but there's a bunch of teams here. And one of them that you are really fading this year is Cal. Cal, obviously, over there on the West Coast, has to make some trips east. Difficult thing for that team to accomplish. Their win total is set at 5.5 right now. Share us some logic with why you think that Cal is not going to hit 6 or more wins.
Yeah, Cal just got crushed by the transfer portal. There's a world in which the transfer portal no longer exists. Everybody stays at Cal, and they're a lock to make a bowl game and maybe even challenge to win 8-9 games because there was some talent on the team last year, despite having kind of an up and down season. There was some exciting talent, and then everybody left. Most notably, they lost their quarterback, Fernando Mendoza. He's going to go play for Indiana this year, hope to get Indiana back to the playoffs. Then in the spring, they got just completely decimated, losing their entire depth chart at running back. One of their starters, Jaden Ott, went to Oklahoma. Javian Thomas, who had a really good year filling in for Ott at times while he was injured last season, he ended up at UCLA. Just everybody left the program. There's so much turnover. Just the mass exodus left them without virtually any talent. And looking at their schedule, I only see one guaranteed win. They play Texas Southern, an FCS program, which that should be a win for them. But the rest of their non-conference schedule then is at Oregon State, at San Diego State, and then at home against Minnesota. You know, maybe they could win one of those games. Maybe they upset Minnesota at home, but those are not easy wins. They could easily lose all 3 of those games. And then in their conference schedule, they do play the other bottom feeder in the ACC, Stanford, but it's on the road. They could very easily go 1-11 if things don't really come together. The other factor here is that they've recently announced that Jaron-Keawe, a true freshman, is going to take over at quarterback. Now, he's talented. He was originally committed to Oregon. There are high expectations for him long-term, but there is absolutely no offensive talent around him to make you think that you could actually win a lot of games with him at your quarterback as a true freshman. They chose him over former Ohio State backup Devin Brown, who was originally a big recruit at Ohio State. You may remember the bowl game against Missouri a couple of years ago when he started and then got injured just a couple plays into the game. He was at one point a highly regarded player, still certainly talented enough. Cal could have rolled with him and tried to win 4, 5, maybe 6 games against this schedule. But the fact that they're just handing it to the true freshman right out of the gate, despite not really having the talent that you want to support a true freshman with, that tells me that they're basically just punting on this year and just says, let's put the true freshman out there. Let's let him get some reps and maybe we can be competitive next year. So I think the under here hits pretty easily, and it could be as low as 1 win.
1 win. Wow. That's crazy. I actually might be going down to Virginia Tech to watch them host Cal on a Friday night this year. So I don't know if I'm going there or not yet, Ryan, but that'll be interesting. Let's talk about, and you can get, by the way, you can get Cal right now, -140 to go under 5.5. If you want to tail Ryan in that one, that's over at FanDuel. Well, let's talk about Duke. Duke, you like this team to go over 6.5 wins. Right now, you can get that for -185 over at DraftKings at the best price on that as we're recording this here. Ryan, what makes you excited about Duke this season? Why do you think that they're going to hit 7 or more wins?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite bets of the whole offseason. I'm shocked that that number is as low as it is. I think the main reason it's only at 6.5 instead of 7.5 or even 8.5 is the fact that it's Duke. We don't associate Duke football with winning a lot of games, but they had a good year last year. And then they went into the portal and paid good money for Darian Mensah, who last year was one of the breakout stars at the group of 5 level as a redshirt freshman at Tulane. I would argue he was the most important transfer who changed schools this offseason. Now, he probably wasn't the most impactful quarterback for this season alone. Obviously, there's someone like Carson Beck who changed schools, going from Georgia to Miami. We've seen Carson Beck, against elite competition before. He's more of a known commodity, whereas Mensah is still growing as he's just entering his redshirt sophomore year. But the fact that Duke was able to get a quarterback coming off a great season at Tulane, who's got 3 years of eligibility remaining, arguably the most important factor or the most important transfer for this offseason for what he could do for that program over a couple seasons. And I expect him to have success right away because he steps in behind a veteran offensive line, arguably the best offensive line in the ACC last season. Duke returns 4 starters, and that 5th spot is going to be decided by 2 veteran FCS transfers who are battling out. So they're going to have 5 guys on that offensive line with significant experience and a 6th guy who had significant experience at the FCS level, ready to step in if any injuries come up. Last season, looking at opponent-adjusted data, Duke ranked 8th in the country in pressure rate allowed. Tulane, where Mensah was last year, they ranked 96. So yes, it's a step up in competition for Mensah, but he's playing behind a really steady offensive line. And Mensah he's not small, but he's a little bit of an undersized quarterback. He's relatively mobile. Maybe you could squint and see some shades of like a lesser version of Russell Wilson in terms of the style of his play. And so putting him behind a really good offensive line, I think, is the way to let him reach his ceiling. So this is just not only was it a great get for Duke to get such an impactful player, but a really good fit for him. And probably one of the reasons he was attracted to Duke. I'm sure there were bigger programs out there going after him. Now, we also have to look at the schedule, obviously, and try to play this out. Duke plays Clemson. That's almost certainly a loss. I don't think Duke is going to be on Clemson's level this year. But their next toughest game is non-conference in week 2 at home against Illinois. Now, Illinois is ranked 12th in the country, so there's high expectations for Illinois, but it's still Illinois. And, we don't exactly know what we're going to get out of Illinois. There's a lot of expectations because of players returning, but they didn't play a lot of great teams last year. Going on the road against Duke could easily win that game. And if they win that game, I think they cruise to the over. I think Duke is going to be a factor in the ACC title race. I could see them winning 9 and maybe even 10 games this season.
Well, that would definitely be huge and sail way over the 6.5. There's no real market for betting alt win totals in college football like there is at the NFL level, but if you can find that, Duke might be somebody to minus 185 juice, a little bit pricier. In fact, I'm looking down the list of all the different futures that Ryan's going to be sharing from a regular season win number. This is the priciest one that's out there, so we're going to be hitting a lot of other markets that have, or a lot of other colleges that have lesser odds than this one. But if you can find over 7.5 for a better price, you might want to be looking to do that. But that will cover it for the ACC. We will be talking about Illinois momentarily here when we talk about the Big Ten, because Ryan's got a bet on Illinois that he loves. But we'll be back very soon with some of these other conferences. We're still yet to hit the Big 12, the Big 10, and the SEC, as well as some other futures and some long shots with Ryan McCrystal. So stay right here for more.